Hello, everybody. Tensions are high. It's like for the last nearly 90 days, we're literally in the same range. Nothing is happening. And people are very frustrated because they look around. I think CTO said they're looking at their parents' silver supply being worth more than their Bitcoin. And people are, there's nothing worse, I think, in investing than people being in something and then watching all the other assets run. It causes extreme pain. But we're going to get to that today and saying, you know, it's never good to be envious of other assets, and there's always a faster horse somewhere. But the question is, what's going to happen big picture? That's what we're going to try to dig into today. And the structure of our talk is a bit different. But first of all, Mando, good morning. All good in the hood?
Yeah, did you miss me? Sorry,
Yes.
sorry I wasn't here last week.
We did.
Yeah, what I would say is a very interesting. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff happening across the so there's opportunities to make money. Let me put it that way.
CTO, what's going on in your world?
Yeah, I think everyone has to kind of learn to tackle the FOMO feeling, because one way that I find it helpful is that there's literally 1,000 assets that are going up every single day. You simply cannot wake up and feel bad for missing all those 1,000 every single day. But of course, it is difficult when silver, gold is going up like this. If you're not owning it, you start feeling bad. It feels like everyone else is winning and so on and so forth. But you have to get over that feeling, because what will happen otherwise is that you will capitulate eventually and buy the pico top of whatever parabola it is in whatever asset. So that's one theme for today, maybe.
Exactly. I'm a big believer in mean reversion. And if you look at the historic silver chart, for example, or the Monero chart, etc., they always kind of mean revert. So this is more of could just be a massive short squeeze to some extent. Marty, what's going on in your world? What do you see happening out there?
All good. I mean, as usual, this is exactly what I expected. Nothing is out of the normal. Normally, these macro bottoms happen, and then gold and silver rally. All we have to see is what's the next levels. Gold 5,000, silver 100, and Bitcoin is obviously going into its bear market, and looks like it's playing the Wyckoff perfectly. So as expected, I mean, just watch the roadmap. Just watch the Wyckoff. It's telling you exactly what's happening. They will do one final flush out for sure. But I mean, I think the important thing is time horizon, guys. Depending on your investment time horizon, everything's different. So anybody asking quick questions about what to do, why do I miss out? I mean, what is their time horizon? If you're buying Bitcoin, for example, for 2030, these ranges are insane. We came from 16,000. What do people expect, right?
Yeah. Well, the big question I want to kind of tuck into here is when I see things like gold and silver run so fast, I actually get a little bit excited, because
absolutely,
I know it's a harbinger of things to come. So if you look at the gold, so every time gold market cap goes up, there was talk for a decade that one day Bitcoin would hit gold market cap. You guys remember all that for the last 10 years. Now gold has just reached a $35 trillion market cap. When you break that down, that means if Bitcoin hits market cap parity with gold, that's a $1.8 million Bitcoin. So I'm going to kick this to you, Mando, first. Are we delusional here? Are we going to spring or sink? There's a million opinions out there as to what's going to happen next. A lot of people are hoping for 70K. A lot of people think we'll struggle in this range, sub 100 for a while. We've been here for nearly 90 days. What's going on?
My gut tells me we are going lower, I have to say. And may not be what people want to hear, but my gut tells me that just the setup here just continues to feel like something needs to properly break for crypto then to be seen as the asset. And in this sort of range where everything else is hitting all-time highs, Bitcoin seems to be struggling. And I think CTO will probably show that in the charts as well. We had a bit of a breakdown again. So my gut is that we could be in for a little bit more pain. It doesn't necessarily change the long-term appetite here, I think, for crypto. But yeah, I don't think if you're facing a lot of personal anxiety right now because metals are going higher and crypto isn't, I don't know when that's gonna that's going to change. I do think that this whole situation in Japan may be it. Like if that starts to spiral, I do think that you could see a bit of a Bitcoin trade on the back of that. That would be like the most obvious one. Potentially the market structure bill, although it looks like that's maybe going to be delayed. Those are the two like short-term ones I'd see. Or we see it's a narrative right now, but it's a narrative which seems to be growing. And I was at the Real Vision conference this week and I met a bunch of people, and the first thing everyone mentioned to me was about quantum. Everyone's talking about it, even if it's not a threat. And I think that narrative needs to be addressed somewhat head on by the Bitcoin core devs at the moment.
In fact, Vitalik and the Ethereum Foundation have already funded $1 million,
right,
or multi-million-dollar quantum proofing project.
That's the sort of thing that even just something like that, some sort of organization by the Bitcoin core devs, I think would change the narrative around it, which may also lead to like a candle, because I think everyone's sitting there right now and going like, this should be going a lot higher. Like all this. Yeah.
Marty, I think you're tapping your fingers.
Yeah.
Sorry, playing the piano again.
There is obviously some elasticity to supply in some of these metals. You know, like we will find more gold if it doubles. We will find more silver if it doubles. In the short term, they are inelastic. In the medium to long term, we'll find it.
Yeah,
there isn't for Bitcoin, and it does have that digital gold narrative, and somehow it's broken down. And I think now either something really has to break, or we need to address quantum. I think to kind of see that bounce.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the chart. You mentioned that, Mando. Walk us through silver, Swiss franc, copper.
Yeah, exactly.
Gold,
so let me
else.
just first show what I tried to say before here. So, of course, everyone who doesn't have silver feeling, of course, enormous FOMO right here. But like the controlled entries were here in April 2024 and maybe here in May 2025. There was one more setup in November 2025. But buying something here is gambling. I have no idea. Perhaps it will go much higher. But what has happened in the previous times it has run like this is that there have been corrections. So, and they can be brutal. So at some point, this will correct. That I have no doubt about, and it will be brutal. And unfortunately, most retail, they tend to buy like the pico tops of this FOMO when it's as most euphoric as possible. And unless you have some insight into the world economy that no one else has, it's very difficult to know when it will turn. So I feel that the risk reward to try to, do something now just isn't there. This is how the altcoins often look.
Yeah.
If you've been here for some time, the charts look exactly like this.
Yeah.
And
meme commodities. It's meme, like we had meme stocks, they had meme coins, and now it's meme commodities. Like all these people, like random people are loading up their Robinhood account and buying palladium. Like it's a weird
Exactly. So it's kind of difficult. Let's switch to Bitcoin, which looks quite different from the chart we just looked at. So clearly it's not behaving like digital gold at this point. That much we can say. And from a technical perspective, exactly like Mando said, this has not turned yet. Of course, it could be that this range here and ends up holding and it reverses from here, but that's pure speculation at this point. This is a wedge that broke on the downside. The trend is still down. It hasn't turned yet. And then, of course, we don't know about the future, but there's no clear signs of this turning yet, exactly like Mando said. So that's what we can see in the Bitcoin chart.
One thing real crude to point out here is we did have that big breach down to low 80s a while back, but ever since then, the 85K has held up very well for the last 3 months.
It has, absolutely. So that's, if I remove these, it's perhaps that's clear. So it could be that this range here will end up holding and that it becomes a rectangle reversal pattern. It actually looked like that already in, 2 weeks ago, right? On 14th of January. This was a legit breakout, but it didn't hold. It fell down again. But that could happen again, and maybe second time's the charm, and it actually turns here. A rectangle pattern can be a strong reversal pattern. So it can absolutely happen, but it hasn't happened yet. If it does, we're not going to miss it, guys. We're not going to sit here and miss it. So
Yeah.
no need to be stressed. We will hopefully see when it is turning, and then I will take it from there.
Yeah, and I go back to money. We have had no flows into the ETFs. We've had drainage as well, and there's a direct correlation between the action there. If we look at the US spot ETFs going back the last, well, basically since 1010, it's just been slow drainage. And until those things activate again, until maybe, and it goes back to rotation, Marty, perhaps, you know, bees always go to the flowers with the most pollen. Right now, those are things like gold and silver and palladium and Robin Hood and whatever else Mando said. Do you believe the action in other assets is taking the oxygen from the Bitcoin room?
Perhaps. I mean, there's been a lot of outflows from Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs for the last couple of months, but only positive inflows for Solana ETFs. So I just think it's just repositioning. At the end of the day, I think we're going through, like I said, a macroeconomic transition. Gold and silver are repricing. Bitcoin is doing its work off, and it will catch up to money supply, which is at all-time high, nearly hitting 100 trillion. Everyone is printing. If I look at my charts here that I do detailed global liquidity, China is at 48.9 trillion. They've only been printing more money. Russia's at 1.6 trillion. Japan's at 8.3 trillion. Massive big candle over the weekend. EU is at all-time high, 19 trillion. They're all printing money. So are they printing money and buying gold and silver? Probably, right? When gold and silver break down, that's what we're looking for. When they have their blow off tops, and then where will the money go? That's when I'll look at where's the money going to go. This is a macro monetary reset. So the money will flow. Where will it flow? I think it will flow as usual, but the allocation to crypto will be much larger than the last time. In my opinion, we're at the bottom of a bear market right now. That's what the Wyckoff's telling us. Put up that chart I sent you today. I sent you another one looking at silver and then look at Bitcoin. Look at that chart in the WhatsApp.
Yeah,
Put that
let me dig that up and pop it in.
That's all I look at.
Yeah.
I don't really get caught up in the weeds, guys. It's all meant to trap you.
Mando, you mentioned Japan. From the Real Vision conference, was there a lot of talk about this being the black swan, or was it just, we've seen the carry trade unwind for the last 12 months? Maybe it's nothing.
No evidence.
It has been nothing, but it does seem like they're now going to do some intervention, right? Where they're literally selling dollars to buy yen. I think that is the first time we've seen that for a little bit, and maybe that's the beginning of worry about this. The issue about this is Japan's debt to GDP. There's like an echo again. I don't know if Marty, it's coming from you potentially.
Weird. Do you hear my echo?
I think it's coming from you. And I think the reason for that is the debt to GDP ratio is so high in Japan. So if this does continue to go higher, this will have a very worrying effect on the yen, and that could cause a rush from Japan, which is like 3% of global GDP, maybe even higher, to other alternatives. Gold has been the main thing that people have been talking about. Obviously, it's a bit more integrated into Japan, that they were slow to pick up on Bitcoin, and they've only really recently gone into crypto. But I do think Bitcoin could really benefit in that sort of world. Like just seeing a top country in terms of GDP go through a spiral like this, I think would really prove that this current system is fundamentally broken.
Exactly, Mando. I always say Bitcoin loves a crisis. It's one of my old expressions. But let's talk about, while we're on the topic of money, there's some changes happening that could be beneficial. We've got this guy, Rick Reeder. He is the chief investment officer of BlackRock. Larry Fink is now the interim head of the WEF. And the Fed has always been on the horn with BlackRock whenever there's a bond crisis, financial crisis, C-19, etc. The biggest money runner in the world is very closely aligned with the Fed. Now, Rick Reeder is now top in the seat. I know, Marty, you probably follow this stuff too. He likes low interest rates. He could take us down to 3% or 1% or 2% in very short order and run the economy hot. Is this good or bad for Bitcoin?
I mean, let me start again. I don't believe any of this influences Bitcoin. I believe Bitcoin is manipulated by large players, large institutional players. So I'll start it with that again. Will this influence Bitcoin stuff? I don't really buy into. I think he's very good for the global economy, especially for Trump's plan. He's always been a proponent of Bitcoin since early days. He's been a big Bitcoin evangelist from the beginning. He's, I believe, the person that influenced Larry Fink and turned Larry Fink around into understanding Bitcoin and its value. And so, yes, absolutely, he would be very bullish for the sentiment of Bitcoin, 100%. He's a great guy. If you watch the Raoul Pal interview with him, it's mind-blowing. He predicted a lot of what's happening now. So I believe Rick Reeder is a strong candidate. In my opinion, it's between Rick Reeder, Hassett, or obviously Moran. I'm a big Moran fan. But that's the big news is this week we might get more information on the Trump pick. It's coming down to the wire right now. We should know very soon.
And then the dollar is also tanking. CTO, the Dixie. This is normally also very good for Bitcoin when the dollars get weak. But think about it. If you have an asset denominated in the dollar goes down, the asset goes up. And this is what's really bizarre. If you take the true dollar value in a basket of currencies and the current price, Bitcoin should be a lot higher. CTO, any thoughts on the Dixie? Mando as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can show some charts just to touch on what we just talked about. So here is the Japan 30-year bond yield. And I mean, it feels like it happened just now, but this journey actually started already 2020, and it's been going in this direction since. So that's an interesting perspective on that. Dixie. So definitely the dollar is under pressure. And so,
what you should show is a chart of the Japanese 10-year yield versus silver. That's the chart. That tells you everything. It's literally following each other.
How interesting. I'll bring that up as well.
Yep.
So the dollar kind of was very strong here until 2022 compared to the other fiat currencies. Then it broke down. It broke down again here last spring in 2025 in April, and then it stayed below here. But I think what is not visible here is that we're a lot comparing garbage versus garbage a little bit. But what was very striking to me was if we start comparing the Swiss franc, for example, versus US dollar, like one of the currencies that is behaving a little bit differently. Then it's a very different picture here. It's showing enormous strength over quite long time, clean setups, new breakouts. So this is in direction of Swiss franc versus US dollar. So this going up means the Swiss franc is becoming stronger and dollar is getting weaker. And this is happening not only on US dollar. The chart basically looks almost the same on Swiss franc versus euro. This is basically breaking out now as we're recording this. So, and I feel that this is a shift. I listened a lot. I felt for the first time this year, the World Economic Forum was actually interesting with Larry Fink there and everyone. I think it was a lot of interesting conclusions, and people are kind of worried that it's an irresponsible spending from the governments.
Correct.
And one of the key people there said that in like 1920s and so on, it was the private sector that was irresponsible, but this time it's the government sector. They are printing out of control, and that seems to be the case both in the US and maybe Europe as well to some extent. So I am a little bit worried here actually for a rapid drop of purchase power of the US dollar fiat, for example, that, they will print more money and do all these things, bail out Japan and everything else.
Yeah. And these are, well, again, everywhere I look, I see nothing but really good tailwinds for the Bitcoin space. But the other thing I would like to mention, and it goes back to one of the things I sometimes say, is risk happens fast. So if you look at the action on silver just since the beginning of the year, nobody saw that coming. It just went vertical. It completely outstripped the performance of gold by a large margin, even going back in time. Mando, in terms of risk happening fast, could we wake up one morning and then we see the massive crisis happens, and then everybody says, "Oh, we need some schmuck insurance for this. Let's go buy some Bitcoin," and that goes to the moon, and the OTC desks are empty, etc. Because we see Michael Saylor keeps on buying hand over fist, with another 3,000 today was announced, and he nearly has. If you imagine 5 million Bitcoin are lost, he nearly has 5% of the supply. One guy, one company. Thoughts?
I'm not as bullish. I mean, Sailor buying is going to be a constant, but a top 5 GDP country going through a debt spiral and having to print their way out of it, or basically sell all of their US dollar holdings to prop up their own currency, that is an obvious Bitcoin trade. That's just an obvious Bitcoin trade. How on the back of that you couldn't say, "Oh, this is going to be a new monetary system that we need to move to." Some people might say we need to go back to the gold standard, but again, like, the supply is inelastic. There is some elasticity of supply. Like, I actually met a guy based in there's some echo again, Marty, in Miami, who works on old gold mines and like is extracting more value from them now, because suddenly the economics of that has gotten way more attractive. So like, mines which are previously like shafts which are difficult to get, or older mines which weren't as productive, they're now looking at them again and being like, right, well, we suddenly with new technology we can go into some of these shafts and find more gold. Like, there's nothing with that with Bitcoin. So if you can get over the quantum risk of it, let's say, then I think it's just a very, very nice asset to own.
Yeah, it's like shale oil. When gold or oil goes above $90, you can pull the oil out of the sand in Canada, and it's lucrative. But this one here, a lot of people believe Saylor's on track to, no matter what, he doesn't care. He wants to get to 1 million Bitcoin. He's nearly at 750,000 Bitcoin. That would, again, he's also buying up on any excess supply while the ETFs are absent. If the ETFs come by and he continues, this could shake things up. Anyway, enough on that. It is interesting. Somehow, going back to your inelasticity, people see that, but the market isn't ready to step in yet. Eventually, the time will come. We just don't know when. All right, let's get back to some other...
Can I just add one point
yeah.
on that? I think, so why isn't it happening? Why isn't it going up? I feel that one thing I learned in crypto is that the price action creates the narrative. It's not the other way around. So the narrative is there, but price isn't moving. So then it feels like, oh, the narrative wasn't true. Now the gold is moving because clearly some central banks are buying large quantities of it. That's why it's going up. It's not going up because of the narrative. It's going up because of the action of buying. So I feel that if that changes, if suddenly buying is back, okay, then the narrative is true again, that it is the new monetary system and so on. So it just takes that. It just takes enough buying power, and then the narrative can be back, and it can start, be the digital gold again. And at some point, I'm almost sure it will happen. From my perspective, the lower the prices when it turns, the better, because then the more money we can make.
Yeah, good point. Okay, a lot of people now are, again, debating what they should do. A lot of people all of a sudden had windfalls. Maybe it's part of the big... a lot of people are earning or taking in retirement money. They're being left money by loved ones, etc. And I've seen a lot of people all of a sudden have $200K cash in their bank, $50,000, $100,000. And people are questioning now, what should they do? What should they buy? So we sometimes ask these questions. We'll do a quick round the horn here. You have $200K. Do you go leverage Bitcoin long on Coinbase? Or do you, I don't know, invest in other assets or AI or chase the precious metals? Mando, quick one around the horn. Somebody dropped $200K into your pocket. What would you do? Deploy, hold cash, buy JLP?
I'm a little bit wary on the L1 trade just because of what's happening with Bitcoin. But one thing I am very, very bullish on at the moment is AI and the whole agent space starting to come to life. I don't know if you've seen, but there's, again, over the last 2 weeks, this whole move towards AI agents doing things for you has taken another step. There was this Claude bot thing, which has gone viral, and everyone downloading it and using it to trade on Hyperliquid. And I do think that decentralized trading via these bots like we are getting there. I saw people being like giving these bots, oh, hey, just trade on Hyperliquid for me. You need to survive. The only way that I'm going to pay for your server fees is if you make money from this. I think we're about to enter that world pretty quick. Maybe I've been saying it for a while, but every single week I go like, this is really, really close.
Yeah.
I am bullish on Hyperliquid in particular as a venue for that. I really like apps in crypto, which use crypto as the rails and then have a very direct path back to the token making money. So I really like that one. I think Hyperliquid would be an interesting one to look at here as AI picks up and has like a direct link back to the revenue.
Interesting, because we do know that there are 5 dApps on one chain that make more than Ethereum. And there's also Hyperliquid that has been making a ton of money. There's also a new one too. I forget the name of it. That's making even more money than Hyperliquid.
Aster, Light, and Lighter and Hyperliquid are the 3 main ones. But I think Hyperliquid has generally won that war. It does feel like won that war.
Yeah, despair. Marty, what would you do? Now we know what Manda's looking at.
It depends on the timeline. Is this for 2030 or is it for next week?
It'll be 2030, like 3 to 5 year time frame.
I think you've got to allocate significant amount of that to Bitcoin and L1s, in my opinion. L1s that are regulated, L1s that pass as commodities through Clarity, stablecoin movers, tokenize, anything involved in tokenization. I do a combination of Bitcoin and L1s heavily adopted for tokenization.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that one, actually, L1s and tokenization, and if there is a play there, but that's a really good input. So now we have Mando saying he's afraid of L1s right now, but he likes Hyperliquid, and you're the opposite.
I like Hyperliquid because it's an L1 that has like a direct buyback part of it. Other than that, it does feel like that if all my trading groups are trading metals, maybe that's the top, but maybe I feel as though that trade, a lot like copper feels like a metal that could still break out. I know we spoke about that a little bit before in the show. And I still like some of the stuff breaking out to all-time highs like Google, but the stuff in crypto which I like, it's just that right now it feels like with Bitcoin in that range, it's really difficult to go like, right, I'm going to call a bottom. I'd rather wait for a bottom to be confirmed.
Yeah. And you're right. Oftentimes the bottom is made by a massive capitulation event along the lines of 1010. We'll see. I think the leverage is a little bit scarcer these days because people got burnt in 1010. So it might be more difficult to have a capitulation event like that. CTO, what would you do? 200K falls into your pocket today.
Yeah, I don't really buy and close my eyes like that. Right today, I don't see anything that is obvious buying opportunity. Last week, Platinum had a clean new setup, but now that has already reached the target as well. Solana perhaps is bouncing a little bit off supports and so on, but I don't really buy and then hold it for 2 years or 5 years and wake up. I try to react. My perspective is more like this. Right now, it's hard to find new setups. In Meta, it's very difficult. The right entries were a long time ago. And stocks, many all-time high, kind of difficult. Bitcoin looks weak right now, also difficult. But what I know for sure is that next week, next month, or soon, there will be new great setups. It's like waves in the ocean. It's not like the last wave has come and you missed it. That's not how it works in the market. So I will look out for the next clean opportunities and try to take it. Try to see what the narratives might come next and watch the charts and enter with
what
confidence.
I would do, if you want another detailed, I know the people out there like details. What I would do based on Wyckoff, should expect to run towards 90,000 again. We might have had it this morning, and then we'll see the spring. It's going to coincide with the $210 million gamma release January 30th. Around that time frame. It'll test support. Obviously, first support is the lower liquidation levels at 83,300. 82,500, I would say, was the beginning. If it breaks through that support, expect a spring lower, probably under 8,900, testing that previous low. I would say the spring, the potential low will be the Fibonacci at 78,000, somewhere around there. That would be sort of the 5 to 10% probability. That's how I would enter the 200,000 right there.
Yeah, a lot of people believe with this 200 billion gamma release will take the lid off the price action and release it. But we thought that back in December too, Is it true this time, or is it the same thing all over again?
We weren't in the Wyckoff accumulation, in my opinion, then. I mean, we started in November 21st, but it's manifested now. It's very clear what's happened, to me, what's happening. Been here before. This is my 5th Wyckoff, just looks exactly the same. It always gets the sentiment like you guys, basically even the sentiment on this DCA today. They're manufacturing the sentiment. And I see it on the timeline. And it always plays out the same way. There'll be a spring and then a markup towards the SOS, back to resistance, and then onward and upward. And then, as CTO just said, I agree 100%. Price makes narrative. Tomorrow morning, if the price pumps, the narratives will all change. So that, in my opinion, what will happen. Then there's another 86 million gamma release in February 17th, where I believe we'll be testing that resistance at 96,000 and onward up from there at the SOS. In my opinion, that's what's going to happen. We'll watch it play out. It's been very accurate since November 21.
All right, let's talk about tokenization. There was a very interesting piece released late last week from Kathy Wood and ARK Invest, and they looked at the biggest opportunities through, the best ideas, 2026. One of them was the second largest TAM of all was tokenization of everything, $11 trillion. Yes. That took me by surprise. So the questions we have here, this is Solana, is it scaling or failing? I think they're still building, they're still getting faster, they're still getting better, but the sentiment is sucks and nobody's jumping in. But the ETFs are under constant accumulation, as you pointed out, Marty, earlier on. Mm-hmm. The question I have for everybody here, a lot of people think, okay, well, if you need to tokenize stock markets like NASDAQ, you need 1 million transactions per second, you need finality of 30, 40 milliseconds, etc. There's only one game in town can do that. But a lot of people also say, this is where it gets tricky. They say, well, you know what? The New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, they can build their own blockchain. I would like a technological point of view from CTO and Marty why that is not likely. CTO, you first.
The global protocols tend to win. This idea has been up many times in technology history, notably in the beginning of internet. Everyone was going to build their own network, which was optimized for their own application. In the end, that didn't win. And why is it like that? It's a very long discussion, but the global ecosystem, it feels like an washed out word, but tends to win. The global innovation tends to outperform what a few engineers in the local office can do over time. So that's why it wins, and that's why I think it will be the same here. I think the global public protocols in blockchain, that's protocols like Solana, Ethereum was the main contender before, but they've lagged. I think will beat the private protocols, just like TCP/IP and many other protocols beat the local attempts.
We also heard something else. Well, I'm going to dovetail it because it's a European story. The EU at the WEF believe they're going to build a new X social network, and they're calling it W, which is for freedom of speech and truth. So what legs do you think the EU has to build their own social network? And then they just said they want to build their own Google and their own AWS and everything else. Is it a pipe dream, or do they have a chance?
Imagine the cookie pop-ups, how compliant they will be.
Okay, technology perspective number 2. Marty, tell us, can a stock exchange build a protocol to be fast, quick, safe, decentralized, reliable, etc.?
I mean, look, I think there's so much ignorance. I watched the entire Davos thing, and I agree with CTO. It was the best one of all time, in my opinion. The Ken Griffith, Larry Fink, and the EU woman was the greatest debate I've seen in a long time. Anyway, the takeaway is that I think there's still a lot of ignorance in understanding of what blockchain is. EU, going, oh, we'll do it ourselves. Even of X, what you just said. I think there's a lot of ignorance. They don't really understand what it takes. They don't really even know what it is. Larry Fink knows the most. He understands tokenization. He understands decentralization. That's why it's so gung-ho. But we've been building blockchains since early 2000s. I was part of Corba, the first decentralized system, and we've been doing this for a long time. It is incredibly complicated. The complexity in the cryptography is mind-boggling. It's extremely hard. Consensus is almost impossible to design and get right, especially, things like to protect against 51% attacks, long-range attacks, things like that. Nothing at stake problems, et cetera, security, Sybil attacks, Eclipse attacks. You name it. These things are extremely hard to engineer. Scalability, performance trade-offs, the whole dilemma to get that right. They've all tried, they've all failed. Look how many blockchains have come and gone. Network effect, to get people to use it, unbelievably hard. And decentralization is the most important part of blockchain and open source. And if anybody does it themselves, they're gonna, they think they want a piece of the pie. They don't really understand the technology. So the only chance they have, and this is always a non-zero risk, is that they fork a very successful chain, right? Because it's open source. So they could fork Solana, for instance, and use it. And that's not a non-zero probability they try and do that. But nobody will use it. And that's the bottom line. They already have centralized databases with extreme performance. I worked for Oracle. I was the CTO of Oracle. I was CTO of Fiserv. Databases are unbelievably fast. Data centers, the cloud, they've already got that, but it's centralized. Therefore, it doesn't have trust. The whole point of blockchain is no single point of failure and lack of government trust. So a government can do it, and if there's any single point of failure, it doesn't work. So no, I don't think it. And the cost, it'll cost billions, trillions to make it your own blockchain to compete with these things. So I don't think it's happening. I think it's a pipe dream. I think all of these things are FUD narratives because price makes narrative. When the price goes down, all these topics come up, these narratives come up. When price goes up, then the changes instantly. No, I don't think they can. I think they've all tried. JP Morgan tried. You name it, they've tried. Building a blockchain and getting the network effects and getting a community of developers around the world to actually maintain it and bring it up and people to use it is almost impossible. There's a thing called the Lindy effect. Go and learn about it. These blockchains have passed the Lindy effect. There's no turning back, and I think it's extremely hard for anybody else to compete. That's my opinion.
And then what I believe is also possible, Mando, check me here, if there is a core exchange, there'll always be competing exchanges. And could it be possible that there could be, say, a NASDAQ exchange, and then parallel to that, there's a tokenized version of it running on multiple blockchains? Would the NASDAQ open themselves up to that? TradFi perspective.
Yeah, I think what's already been said here is traditionally how these banks might try and do it. Like I've traded at banks and you have like 5 different risk systems even within the bank. Like you have one for fixed income, you have one for equities, you have one for commodities. Like it's a disaster. So the idea that they may decide to all choose to share one is the hope. But some of these people might be like, hey, I'm going to try and build it myself and have some proprietary tech here. You might see a JP Morgan blockchain for a little bit. You may see a New York Stock Exchange blockchain. I agree that over time, those things will be pointless. Like there will have to be some level of conformity, let's say. But it's kind of annoying to see this from some of them at the moment, I would say. There is a
point.
They fork them, but like you could end up with a lot more centralization risk there. And I think that like something disastrous will happen and everyone will realize that there is a need for decentralized platforms.
Well, I mean, another point to make is that, you don't want one thing. One thing defies the single point of failure. You become a single point of failure. That's why I like the fact that tokenization right now seems to be going, if you look at the latest Clarity Act writing, I just read it this morning, it seems to be going to Ethereum and Solana. Everyone's going to tokenize onto Ethereum and Solana. So you have 2 options. Now remember, that's tokenizing the dollar, tokenizing debt, tokenizing money markets, tokenizing equity, tokenizing real world assets, tokenizing everything. Silver will be tokenized. Gold is tokenized. So you don't want to have it all on one thing. It creates one single point of failure. So having the dual networks is a great idea. I think it's a terrific idea. I don't think you want one.
And in fact, it is interesting you say that, Marty, about all roads are leading to ETH and Solana, which is good. Mm-hmm. And also in terms of tokenization of everything, $3.5 trillion of value is already traded in tokenized format today.
Correct.
On blockchain, $3.5 trillion. So it's not like it's a vision for the future. It's already landed. And that's what's big. And stablecoins will be big. The dollar is in a world of hurt. And I know Bessent and others are going to do everything they possibly can to find a way to create yield on stablecoins, because the Clarity Act right now forbids that because the banksters are in play. Any update there, Marty, on when we could see
the Clarity Act? I mean, I talk to people all the time. The Clarity Act, there's obviously a lot of narrative around it. First of all, they bundled up too many things into one act. That's clear. There's too many stakeholders at the table. There's too many conflicts of interest. At the end of the day, the Clarity Act was initially written to bring clarity and classification to blockchain tokens in order to classify them and put them under the correct regulator. And over time, it was just added with, more Genius Act amendments, which is the yield problem. What is a layer 2, the classification of DeFi, all bundled in there. And obviously, that just creates roadblocks in the regulatory and voting situation with one Senate, which are very ignorant. To explain everything you require to understand the Clarity Act right now to someone who doesn't understand crypto is almost impossible. So expect it to take a long time. These people don't really understand any of this stuff. So, and then the stakeholders in the room are banks and exchanges, centralized exchanges, which, I had a long discussion with somebody you all know, but who stands to gain the most with no regulation? Centralized exchanges, right? They're making unbelievable amount of fees. They can manipulate. So they don't really want these acts to pass. So they're going to fight like dogs to not pass them. Who wants regulation? We do. The investors, the traders, the builders.
I'm going to challenge you there, Marty, in that because, Brian Armstrong, a lot of respect goes out to him. He's the one that called BS on the Clarity Act, and he's been a champion for it. The only one from the crypto side. So while CZs and others are quiet, Brian Armstrong was actually very vocal. So do you still stick to that the centralized exchanges do not want the Clarity Act?
I have my own theories. I think layer 2s are at extreme risk of being classified as securities and security venues. And so it jeopardizes everything is built. There you go. You want to hear it? That's what I believe.
Okay.
I don't think it's what you think.
All right. Let's switch gears. Let's get back to questions. The poop coin tax harvest. It's like a lot of people are feeling a sense of urgency right now. 2025 was a lost year. If you were in Bitcoin, you lost 3 or 6% or whatever it was. And people are now looking at the clock and they're looking at the retirement timeline. And it's like, how do they catch up? But there's some decision points need to happen. First of all, the poop coin harvest. Should they, A, dump and consolidate everything into Bitcoin? Or B, hold and wait? Because in reality, when you look at certain things like Jupiter or Hype, etc., they're close to the bottoms. And it's probably not a good idea to sell these things at the bottoms. Mando, to you first. Because you did say at the beginning you were worried about layer 1s, but then you said Hype is good, which is an app, or quasi a layer 1. What would you say here? How would you gauge your poop coins?
If it's an app making revenue, I think it could be in a better spot, basically. So
you mean hold?
Yeah, if it's just an altcoin, I think it's. I mean, I'm never a fan of just owning altcoins. I think you can only buy them at certain points, normally during breakouts, and the rest of the time they just get smashed and smashed and smashed. So I see very few altcoins right now, which I like that story on. So yeah, I think it's always a good time to consolidate into Bitcoin. I do like certain apps. Hyperliquid is the most obvious one right now. I know Jupiter does a buyback, but they've been talking about not turning that off. So for now, my favorite app is definitely Hyperliquid.
And in fact, what's interesting too, and I'm sure you've been tracking this, Mando, is prediction markets, excuse me, are going on chain. And Jupiter has a big play working, I think, with Calci right now as a counterbalance to Polymarket. So, and they're making a lot of money from that. So prediction markets could be a little bit of a game changer. And what Mando said is so important. Always, as follow the money, look at the revenue these things are making and look at the adoption. If they make revenue and they have adoption, they'll eventually float to the top. And that's simple. If there's no adoption, no revenue, boom. One thing is also very unusual in the crypto space is you can see loyalty. Maybe I'm going to ask you this again, Mando. Loyalty through apps can be very fickle. You know, for 9 months or a year, one app could be red hot. And then within 6 weeks, everybody migrates to another application. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, that normally is linked to some form of airdrop campaign or something along those sort of lines.
Kind of rewards, correct.
Yeah, we saw that with the perp dexes. I do still think normally the best product wins over the medium term. So sometimes the best trades are buying the bottom of that sort of a rotation in the best product, which is why Hyperliquid might be an interesting one. We saw that with like the token launch pads as well, where like I think Pump Fund has kind of found a bottom here as well, and is generally seen as still the strongest. There's still a trade there, I think, on that rotation back to the main one. Jupiter has a bit of a moat, I would guess, on Solana, but there's still quite a lot of other players there. So I don't know if it has as strong versus some of the others.
I think you're muted, James.
Okay, sorry, thank you, Marty. Your choice: bullet to the head for the poop coins, or hold them and hope.
Yeah, I mean, if you were heavily invested in poop coins and you're down heavily, then I mean, I don't know what to say. It was a bad trade. I don't know why people put so much money into poop coins in the first place. Anyway, it was all a liveness test. What you got to think is all of those meme coins will be replaced by, proper companies with business models and boards. And the tokenization of those things will use the venues that have been built for meme coins, which have performed unbelievably well at the infrastructure level. The prices are completely separate. So meme coins, to me, were never a real thing. I know a lot of people love meme coins, but I think it was a liveness test. This comes directly from people who built these infrastructures. So you've got to replace in your mind meme coins with actual tokens, the tokenization of anything. So the infrastructure moves the tokens at high speed, has launch pads for tokens, and it's a token economy. If you're in meme coins right now and they're at the low, if you're in altcoins now at the low, it is like Mando said, it's a good time to switch right now. If everything's at its low, that's a good time to slide around. That's a great time to reallocate. Okay, put it in something that's probably going to appreciate. There's a high probability meme coins never recover. Some might, maybe new ones will come along, but they're seasonal. They come and they go.
And the rule of thumb is
get at the right time and get out at the right time.
Yeah,
the beginning of the meme coin season is when you're in and you exit. It's a bell curve. You get out at the top.
And a simple head check as well for everybody listening is 99% of crypto is going to zero. So you need to weed out that 1% of winners. And that is sometimes not easy to do. So again, look at the money they make, look at the adoption, look at the moat, make sure the technology is solid. Another interesting left field question that came in was, I'm 41 years old. I feel like I'm very late to the game. I only have 0.47 Bitcoin, call it half a whole coin, which I think is a substantial amount. What should people do? What's their path forward? They're getting nervous now, especially in this age of AGI and AI. The pressure's on, and I'm feeling that with people out there. CTO, to you first. Your pearls of wisdom from that Swedish mind of yours. Half a Bitcoin, 41. Should they do more side hustles to build a bigger bag? Are they comfortable here?
Yeah, I don't think they should stop trying to get more money. I don't think it's enough if that's the question. But it's enough that it's worthwhile to learn trading, learn investing, and try to grow that capital. It's like, it's not a small amount, $50,000 almost, and half a Bitcoin. So I think that should be the strategy. It's definitely not the right strategy. I don't think is to call it a day and then move to the beach and start drinking beer and wait for the wealth to flow in. I don't think it's enough, but it's definitely enough to start trying to get better at the game, try to learn trading, investing, and try to grow it. And I definitely think that's possible.
You're giving me ideas. Beach and beer. That sounds very attractive.
Sounds fun.
Okay, Marty, give this fellow or lady some advice.
Yeah, I think, first of all, the sentiment right now is awful. So anybody coming into this question at 41 years old and hitting the sentiment wall is probably going to be fearful of everything. I feel like they're late to the game, but you're not. In my opinion, we're at the macro bottom. We're now going into probably the biggest expansion in history. So pretty much anything that's a viable part of the infrastructure of the new economy is a great investment. From AI to Bitcoin to Solana to anything that moves tokens to metals, anything that's priced in dollars is probably at its bottom right now, in my opinion. There might be a pullback. The Wyckoff says they will do one more pullback. And if you look at silver, did the same thing right before it ran like this. The Wyckoff caused the spring, and gold and silver had their spring. Bitcoin's just about to have its spring. And then I think we run to Raoul Powell's inevitable banana zone. I believe they're going to have to print $10 trillion minimum just to get going. So if you're 41 years old right now, first of all, we had in a previous DCA, we discussed that your most valuable thing you can do is have skills. CTO Larson brought that up. Skills. So don't just give up. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to become a full-time trader and that's how I'm going to make my money at 41 years old. You can't give up. You got to work. You got to create liquidity. You got to have income. And it's a great time to do that. You can start your own business with an AI agent right now. I have friends, they're 23, 24 years old. They quit their jobs and they're vibe coded AI agents that replace employees for small businesses, and they're killing it. There's unbelievable opportunity right now if you're 41 years old.
Exactly.
Start your own business.
There's a guy in the Bay Area who spun up 30 startups in a month using AI and AI agents. 30. He's clever enough to know that, hey, 29 might go to zero, but if one hits...
You can literally go on AI right now and say, AI, I'm 41 years old. I want to start a business. What's the best thing to do? And it'll literally give you a thesis and a game plan for starting a small business. It's unbelievable. So AI will give you the idea to create your own AI business. It's unbelievable. My brother just left Deloitte to start his own company in AI. You can imagine, he let go a huge salary, and he's 41. So this is the time. 41-year-olds, this is your time.
Yeah, and you
this
can
is
build
when
an
you start your own
enterprise.
business.
For the first time ever in history, you can actually build an enterprise, an accounting department, a finance department, marketing department, sales department, whatever, with no employees, which is a massive paradigm shift. Mando, anything to add on this one? Skills?
No, I mean he's not late in the
hustles.
game. That's all I would say. 41. You got a lot you can do. I do think this is a great time to be a bit more entrepreneurial. I think that I want 0.47 Bitcoin as well isn't going to be enough. So I would just echo what was already said. Like, I think there's a lot still to make here. You've got to have a lot more of a hustle mindset, even at that age.
Yeah, good stuff. We have one other little piece of news, which is, I think it's slide 13. A lot of people are kind of pinning hopes and dreams again to things on the way out there in the future. There's the U.S. is having a 250-year American anniversary, and they believe there's going to be a lot of build-up to that event. There'll be a new Fed chair, which will cut interest rates, which will boost the market. There'll be more money printing, more strategic advances, maybe an SBR, which they kind of have 330,000 Bitcoin, if I'm not mistaken, right now. Is it worth pinning any hopes and dreams to this event? Marty, you first. You follow the politics very closely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether this is, to me, I haven't heard of this narrative, to be honest, James. So you're bringing this up to me, it's news. I didn't even know that it was a 250-year century. But I believe that, Trump started in his first term, MAGA, and he's picked it up now. And, tariffs were always part of the plan under Moran. And he's trying to do it. He's trying to make the U.S. have its big jubilee. And that starts with regaining trust in the U.S. debt. And I think all of these things, from Venezuela to Greenland to the Golden Dome to crypto to the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve to the big beautiful bill, it's all about a Green New Deal, bringing back growth to the U.S., bringing back U.S. supremacy. Remember, the U.S.
Don't mention the Green New Deal.
Saved the world before, at the end of World War II. They also pillaged all the gold, but they saved the world. And I think it's their time to do it again. And yeah, we're looking for any major milestone to create the Jubilee. And I believe we always said an entrepreneurial president would come along that would say that, F you to the world debt. And it looks like Trump is the guy. So he's trying. I think he's trying his lot. And you could see at Davos, there's a lot of pushback. They're very afraid of it because, he's pulling out security from the rest of the world and making it a Western Hemisphere only thing. And the rest of the world are having to pivot and think about their own security, things like that. So yes, maybe the 250-year Jubilee is the one.
Davos was a big turning point, by the way.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like a whole bunch of gangsters went in there and just shook them down. Man, did you track any of the WEF stuff at Davos last week? I know you were at another conference.
I think it just confirms what everyone's been saying, right? Which is that we are in this new. He really just came through and just proved what it's all about. Which, whether you like it or not, the US is going to be a bit more for its own interests and bully potentially to get them. I think there was some brinkmanship, obviously, around some of the deal stuff, which I guess I don't really know why that's a surprise here from Trump. He does that all the time. But yeah, you're definitely seeing that the US is deciding that it's going to take a far more aggressive role in what it wants and getting it. I think Europe, this was a big wake up for Europe in realizing that. There was a lot of commentary from, and maybe Canada as well. There was a very good speech by Carney, actually, just like describing that, the world is changing and you got to pick back up. I know some people don't like Carney, but I thought it was a very good speech. And there were some speeches by various different European officials saying the same thing. Now they have to go back and do it, and I'm glad that Europe is maybe waking up to it, getting some more energy independence, realizing that the way to make money from tech is not finding big tech firms from the US and actually building your own. Like, these are sort of basic things that you need to be doing. Whether the US whether Europe will do it remains to be seen. It feels like maybe the bureaucracy has to die. Maybe the EU has to die for Europe to really be.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of chatter about countries trying to exit to survive. I think Poland had the chance of adopting the euro, and they said, "No, thank you. We're fine without it." CTO, technical question. Nobody's talking about the Bitcoin soft fork. We know the whole debate between core and knots. I think that was bad press as well for Bitcoin. Bitcoin should know what to do. I believe the protocol should be kept as simple as possible as a store of value, not be adding a whole bunch of JPEGs to it. What's your take on this? And could this be also making potential investors nervous in the asset?
I think exactly like Mando said earlier, I think it's a wrong focus right now. There is one problem that the community should really attack, and that is the quantum threat, because exactly like Mando said, it's what everyone's talking about now. And it's not good to have that, like, what's the solution? It should be a clear roadmap, like, here's what we're going to do step by step. Here's how we fix the old Satoshi addresses and or wallets, and here's when we will upgrade step by step, and here's how we monitor that we're well ahead, safely ahead of any quantum development in computer capacity.
I can comment on
talking about all these other things. It's like a completely wrong focus. It's not going to move the price. It's not going to do anything good. That's my take.
I mean, the Bitcoin soft fork is called BIP 110 to be specific, and around 2.38% of nodes run it. So it's a very low threshold, far from a super majority. It's a joke. It's FUD. Forget about it. Don't get caught up in FUD, people. Stop getting FUDed. That is, to me, the biggest problem.
Yeah.
People can raise...
I know we're running out of time. I have one super big question.
Before you go, CTO, I do want to say something regarding quantum. And that is, if there is a quantum computer strong enough, maybe Google or IBM or somebody makes it, strong enough to hack Bitcoin, that means every other system on the planet is already hacked. This is what people forget.
There's $33 trillion in paper gold right now. Okay, that'll get hacked way before Bitcoin.
Yes. Correct.
For God's sake. That'll get hacked way before.
The others are all organizing to try and upgrade. And that, like, Bitcoin can easily do that. But right now, is that they are not. And that's what's causing the narrative. I think it's something very basic just has to happen. Just even what we just saw from the ETH Foundation over the weekend, which is, hey, we're taking this seriously. We're going to do something. Whether it's, of course, it would only ever be a nation state probably that has quantum computing at this stage. And like, which nation state's really going to take, with that sort of power, is going to take down Bitcoin? Like, you can only really imagine that it would be like North Korea, and I don't think they're getting a quantum computer anytime soon. So.
There is actually a lot since the beginning of middle of 2025. Bitcoin Core has actually been talking about quantum. There's actually a thing called BIP 360. Go research it. Go grok it. It's a full pay to quantum resistant hash scheme. They're working on it. It's all happening. There's QRAM, quantum resistant address migration protocol. Very simple. They'll
There is
create new
there is by some, but there's very clear by others.
It's just not in the narrative. It'll come in the narrative when they need it. The second, when the Wyckoff is ready to spring, you'll see the narrative. Oh, Bitcoin is addressing quantum. Don't get stuck in the narratives. It's all pre-programmed, in my opinion. There is so much work on Bitcoin post-quantum. It's unbelievable. There's at least 5 different proposals out there. People just don't research it. You'll just simply move your Bitcoin from where it is now to a new address, and it'll be quantum resistant. We had Costas from the Sui Foundation come on. He built the cryptography for Sui and has been part of Bitcoin forever. He explained very clearly the quantum threat. It is far, far away. They haven't even got one running.
But again, it's about the narrative. Anything that makes investors hate things that are in any way in doubt, and that's the problem. Mark Carney's in the audience for you, Mando, as well. He says hi. And
I'm not a Mark Carney fan, just to let you know.
Yeah, I know your comment did trigger a lot of emotions out there.
Really?
I want to repeat that in case you missed it. Mando said he's not a Mark Carney fan.
What's up, Mark Carney?
There was good points he made apparently in the speech.
Did you guys see though how fast Mark Carney changed his tune when Trump threatened tariffs?
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, don't forget, by the way, we'll take one more quick question. We're at the top of the hour right now. Links below for this team. We're streaming on all our channels. Make sure you follow these legends. And I want to wish everybody a happy Monday. And it's very cold in Canada. There's not a lot of questions, which
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that we could see a dramatic drop in purchase value of dollar, like in the near term, like within a year or something?
I think the government want to orchestrate that.
Yes, they want that.
Yeah, so it's very, very clear what they want. A weaker dollar is better for the U.S. They always want to demonetize their debt. That's the end game.
They need to refinance their debt, export more products. They need the dollar to be weaker. It's all planned. It's all manipulated.
Yeah,
because that's kind of a big thing. Mando, what's your take on that? Should we be scared holding the fiat?
I saw on the weekend that the gold has overtaken U.S. Treasuries now as the #1 asset.
Correct.
By central banks globally. That as a trend is going to continue, particularly if Japan spirals here. Japan is one of the biggest holders of US debt. And today they're talking about doing a swap line basically to sell dollars to buy yen. Feels like maybe both sides, as we've just spoken about, get what they want from that. And you have a new Fed chair coming in. So I do think that, I'm not sure if it will necessarily lead to dollar weakness. I think probably we will continue to see a weakness in the dollar, but I do think that the other thing is that we could see a spike in bond yields even in that time.
Yeah.
I mean, just also once again, I don't want to rattle on it. That's a little fatty because 80% of the debt is held by the public in Social Security, Medicare, internally in the US. Even Japan, it's like $1 trillion of the 37. It's not a huge deal, but yes. I believe that the US dollar bonds are extremely under risk right now, under pressure of being even degraded even further. They need a plan. I think tariffs is the plan to support more, a buyer of last resort will probably be stablecoin and the tariffs. The big ruling, guys, we didn't talk about it. The big narratives right now are the Trump tariff rulings, which is pushed back. The Supreme Court has not ruled yet. That's going to be massive. And obviously market structure. Crypto market structure, which is pivotal. Let's watch out for those things. See next week on the show whether there's been any movement.
Exactly. And I do want to make people reflect as well on dollar and devaluing the dollar and stuff. All you have to look at is inflation since 2020. It's a cool little chart that I did have in my back pocket on how much prices have gone up. Hospital services, 281%. College tuition, 200%. College books, 180%. Childcare, 160%. Open up some of those leering centers, guys. It's lucrative. Average hourly wages went up a bit. Housing, 111%. Remember, as money is printed, real estate goes up. It floats all boats, but it's not floating the Bitcoin boat, which is quite perplexing. And yes, shout out to the gold bugs. They did well.
That's an insane chart, James. Thanks for that chart. That is an insane chart.
Yeah. But you know what? If you can eat TVs and if you can survive on TVs, you're saving a fortune. They're down a huge percentage. What is that, 98%?
But I mean, that's before silver and gold went. So now TVs will be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's going to happen.
Although they only use crumbs, I think I broke it down in the amount of silver inside of an electric vehicle. It's only like $100 worth, so it's now it's probably like $300-400 worth. So it does add up for sure.
I'd like to see this chart though with the 2026 added.
Yeah, we got to wait a year for that one.
Yep, we'll see that. Let's make a note.
Anyway, thank you everybody for coming. That was a show. That's a wrap. Big links below for the team here. Thank you, Mando. Thank you, CTO. Thank you, Marty.
Absolutely.
And Marty, prediction markets for the tariff rejection, it's 70%.
Yeah, I mean, just so people are aware,
I've never seen the SCOTUS delay 4 times in a row.
Just remember, if they do declare that Trump can't make new tariffs based on emergency measures, he has several other ways of imposing tariffs. So there's an entire backup plan. So once again, don't be super fudded out. The market makers will take advantage of it, but it doesn't mean tariffs are over. It just means that he can't create tariffs under emergency rules.
Exactly.
Without congressional vote.
And a big thank you as well to the moderators, Sean D, T&D, K8, Blazo, and everybody else. Thank you all. The Learning Center. We'll never live that one down. That was the big trade we missed last year, was setting up 15 Learning Centers in Minnesota.
Yeah, if you give me that 200,000, I'll start a Learning Center.
Okay. Cheers all. Be safe. Have a good week.
Okay,
Hang in
have
there.
a good week, guys. Thanks as
Bye.
always.
Thank you, everyone.